Hey everybody, this is CDT day. Holy cow. When I finished the trail, I asked for a couple weeks and then I would give a few videos to kind of close out things. The first video would be my overall thoughts for Idaho and Montana. The second would be like some statistics. And the third would be like an overall feeling about the trail. So it's definitely been more than just a couple of weeks, considering it's January of 2023. Um, okay, so a few things happened, but let's do a few things first. Um, my my beard and hair. I just saw my hairstylist today, and she makes me look fancy pants. She's wonderful. I normally don't pay attention to my looks, and she takes pride in her work, so that's why I look all kind of slick in the video. The next thing is, you may ask, how could I give an overview of Idaho, Montana, because it was 3 months ago. I have a handy dandy notebook that I carried with me the entire trail, and I wrote down some stuff to help me remember Idaho, Montana after just a week or so after I got finished. And it says, F Montana. No, seriously, F Idaho, Montana. So that's not too helpful. So I'm going to do my best going from memory. I don't feel that way about Idaho and Montana anymore, and we'll discuss that a bit. So the last thing I'll do is kind of give an update of where I've been. I took a leave of absence from my job when I stepped on the trail. I fully intended to return to that job if everything worked out, and that has not come to pass. I made a decision to go ahead and step away from the company that I used to work for. I'm a bit sad by that because I was working for a consulting firm, and my client was the National Park Service, and I really enjoyed, not really, I sincerely enjoyed working and supporting the Park Service. And so it's a little bit sad that I won't return to doing so after the trail. Um, I I don't have a job. I'm unemployed and homeless 3 months after the trail. Some wonderful friends have allowed me to stay with them for a few weeks, or the friends I'm staying with now, a couple of months. And I, from the bottom of my heart, am indebted to them because my savings would probably not have lasted this long if I was paying for rent, especially in Denver, where the prices have skyrocketed. I returned from the trail to Denver in October, either late September, early October. And I am friends with a lady and her son who own a shipping company. And November and December are their busy time of year because of the holidays. Of course, people are shipping things like gifts and whatnot, even their luggage, because they don't want to check it. And when I returned from the trail, the woman informed me that her son had passed away. Her son is just a couple years or a few years younger than I was, and he had a heart attack in September, so just a few weeks before I returned. So, number one, it was a good reminder of taking advantage of every opportunity, and it kind of just underlined my stepping away from work and hiking the CDT. The second thing was, I knew she was about to hit her heavy period with regard to foot traffic and shipping. So I offered to help her out in November and December while she had her busy time, and I work full time in December at the shipping place. So I haven't been idle. I've been looking for a new career and also working at the shipping place. So I've been keeping busy. I did go visit some family and some friends, so that was nice after the trail. and I've been able to dog sit and hang out with some friends' dogs, which has been really great. So that's kind of a quick catch up of what I've been doing since the trail. I'm in snowy Colorado, as you can see by the snow over my shoulder, and I wish it was summer. I miss hiking. Um, I'll get into my overall feeling about the CDT in a second video, which should come tomorrow. And I also put the statistics together. So I went through my notebook and all the mileage and stuff and put statistics together. So I'll put together a video and submit that so you folks can watch it, hopefully tomorrow as well. Idaho, Montana, looking back now, we're going to jump into Idaho, Montana. So looking back on Idaho, Montana, it was more challenging than I expected towards the end of the trail. And the challenge wasn't so much the hiking. I have mentioned many times in previous videos when I was still hiking the pointless ups and downs and how frustrating it was that there could be some rerouting done on the CDT and you're not going to miss a lot except for just a bunch of elevation. Idaho, Montana actually was not as difficult as I portrayed in those videos. And I believe I mentioned in those videos, the last few videos, that I had reached a point of hiker fatigue. So when hiker fatigue sets in, especially severely, like it had for me in Idaho, Montana, every day can just seem a little bit arduous. And the difficulty is not just the hiking, it's something as simple as grabbing food out of your pack to eat for lunch or dinner. And so like some of those days I was struggling just to stop to eat lunch, even though I needed the calories. I kind of wanted things just to be easy. And looking back, like if I compare Idaho and Montana to Colorado or the winds, where there's a lot of elevation up and down, Montana wasn't, in my opinion, it was not more difficult than Colorado. Because Colorado, you're going up to, 12, 13,000 feet, 12, 13, or 14,000 feet. You also, like for each ascent, you're doing 2, 3, 4,000 feet ascents. Did we hit 4,000? I think we hit 4,000 once or twice in Colorado, but you're doing like 2,000 to 3,000 foot ascents when you're going up and over the passes or the mountains or whatever it is in Colorado. For the most part in Montana, we were doing 800 to 1,500 mostly. That's Idaho and Montana. I mean, there were a few that it was above 2 or getting up to 2,500, 3,000, but it definitely was, in my opinion, again, it wasn't as difficult as the up and down in Colorado, but it felt like it. And like I said, eating felt like it. Stretching at the end of the day felt like it. Filtering water felt like it. And it was because of the fatigue. And my fatigue, I think, was it was probably the worst hiker fatigue I had. And the CDT itself and being out there for 5 months was not a lot of it. I think a lot of it was to do with, first, I was hiking through most of Idaho, Montana on my own. Like I leapfrogged a few times or a few days with other hikers. But for the most part, like there were multiple days when I did not see anybody. If I did see somebody, they were usually like a weekend hiker or a day hiker. I think it was when I got around the ranch, or leading up to the ranch, so like the Bob Marshall Wilderness, I believe I'd gone out of 10 days of hiking. If memory serves me correctly, I think I saw people on 3 of those days, none of them through hikers, and 7 of the days I didn't see a single person. I didn't hear a person. So it wasn't like somebody was just nearby and I just didn't see him. It was like no one else was around. So I think that was the first thing, is I was going through the fatigue and I felt like I was on my own, which for a good section of Idaho, Montana, I was. Especially like Butte. Butte was another area where I was by myself because most everyone else took the Anaconda cutoff. Um, when I let's see, so when I left, I'm trying to remember which town it was. There was I don't remember. It was about halfway through like the Idaho section, or maybe near closer to the end of it. But I left a town and in Montana, and I didn't see anybody for a while. So um, there were definitely some stretches there. So that's first. Second was the fact that I was in grizzly bear country, and people, since I've gotten finished with the trail, they ask me, how did you sleep at night? Like animals are around, whether they're grizzly bears or mountain lions or black bears or wolves in Yellowstone or whatever it is. Like how did you sleep? Like were you interrupted? Was it disturbed sleep? And for the most part, especially like New Mexico, Colorado, and Wyoming, it was sound sleep. And it wasn't just because we didn't have grizzly bears in those, except for Yellowstone. It was because when I was hiking the Colorado Trail, when I was hiking the Pacific Crest Trail, any other hikes I've done, I've realized in my mind I can either get poor sleep or I can understand the fact that if I'm in my tent and an animal comes through my tent at me, it's a predatory attack and I just got to fight back. I'm likely going to lose because I'm waking up from sleeping and who knows where my knife is or the bear spray. Like I know where they are in the tent, but if something's coming through the tent at you and starts pulling you, then your stuff's going to get kind of in a disarray, right? So I kind of made peace with, many years ago, I made peace with the fact of I'm just going to sleep. And if I get woken up because an animal's attacking me, then just fight back. Just fight back. And surprisingly, that for me, that works. Like I'm able just to go ahead and sleep because I don't have to think. Like when you're hiking down the trail and you approach, let's say, a grizzly bear, you have to determine what type of attack it is. So if the grizzly bear is standing off at you, was that because you surprised the bear and now it's running towards you because it's protecting its young or protecting itself, wherever it is? So it's, it got surprised and it's like, oh, okay, I need to defend myself. Or I got too close and I needed to, or the hiker got too close and I need to defend myself. From the standpoint of the bear and from the standpoint of the hiker actually identifying what the bear's thinking, like, is it a surprise attack? Is it a defense attack? Or is it a predatory attack? Like, you have to kind of determine that when you happen upon the bear or whatever animal it is during the daylight, when you're hiking on the trail. Again, if you're in your tent and the animal comes through the tent, it's not just curious about you. It's a predatory attack and you should treat it that way. This year on the CDT, when I got to Idaho, Montana, I don't want to say I've forgotten that, but I needed a reminder. And the reminder actually came when I was in East Glacier and I was about to step off the trail, which I've talked about in previous videos. Even though it was only 4 days away, I was like, okay, I'm just ready to step off. Part of that was the hiker fatigue. A lot of it was a hiker fatigue. And part of it was just because the anticlimactic way I'd gotten to Glacier National Park, which was a big highlight for me. I'd gotten there later than I wanted. Things were closed down and I wasn't going to get to enjoy the park the way I wanted to. And that storm hit and I was thinking about, okay, let's just do this. And I sat down and made a list. And on one side, the list was the cons of like, why don't I want to do this? And the other side was like, why do I want to do this? And while I was making that list, it dawned on me, hey, you need a reminder that go hike, buddy. If a bear comes through the tent, fight back. But if you die, you're doing something you love. And if you're hiking down the trail making noise, that's the best you can do. And if you encounter a bear and the bear attacks and you die, you're doing something you love. So you can either fear it or you can respect it, take certain steps to do what you need to do in order to protect yourself. And that's all you can do, but you can at least go out and enjoy it. And so in East Glacier, I got a reminder of that. just by making that pros and cons list. So I think those are the big issues I had with Idaho and Montana: the fatigue, hiking by myself, being in grizzly bear country, and those three things just kind of weighed down on me and added stress. Once I got back to East Glacier after hiking through Glacier National Park, and I'd got to the terminus, like the border of Canada and the United States, I felt like a big weight was lifted off my shoulders. And that weight was, you don't have to hike anymore. You're done. You're finished. You don't have to hike anymore. I'll be honest, it only took 2 weeks before I started on my phone. I started looking up which trail was next. And the thumbnail that I'm going to put on this video is actually a sign, the Pacific Northwest Trail. The terminus, the east terminus for so some people call it the PNW, some people call it the PNT. I believe officially it's the PNT, so the Pacific Northwest Trail. The east terminus is where I finish at Chief Mountain on the CDT. And so the thumbnail is actually a picture of the PNT sign at that terminus. And not 2 weeks after I finished the CDT hike this year, I had already started looking up that trail. And I started like reading details about like planning a hike. So the hiker fatigue went away very quickly. I think my hiker fatigue would not have been as bad if I was hiking with someone else through Idaho and Montana. Not all of it, but a good portion of it. I think I would have done much better. I think I also would have enjoyed the terrain of Idaho, Montana. So I will make myself clear. The rocks on the trail in Idaho, Montana, I don't go back on that. Like in the previous videos, I talked about how horrendous that is, and I do not understand why they carpeted a trail with rocks, unless it is they need traction when the trail is wet. And my question is, how often does a trail get so saturated that you need a bed of rocks to walk on? I didn't encounter that. I mean, we did have mud ice a couple of times, but I don't recall us on a regular basis when we meaning all CDT hikers were hiking through Montana, hitting a monsoon that resulted in us needing to step on rocks rather than a trail. So I'm not sure if that's it. I'm not sure if it is for horses. When they step on the trail, then, if it's just dirt and it turns to mud, they muck it up a bit. So I don't know if it's a combination of those two. I don't know if there's an entirely different reason, like mountain bikers, that I'm not thinking about. So it's, sorry, I'm dog sitting. The dogs think someone's at the door. So essentially, the bed of rocks on the trails, I don't go back on that. I absolutely cannot understand why they were doing that, unless they were trying to prevent erosion, or I don't know. Maybe it's a combination of all the above, but it was horrendous. I do not take that back. That was absolutely horrendous. Hiking on that stuff when you're trying to do 20 to 30 miles a day is just, however, the terrain of going up and down was not as bad as I had portrayed it in the videos. Some of it was frustrating, and I still can remember a few places where it was frustrating and we did need to go up and down. But for the most part, it's beautiful country. Like Idaho, Montana, that section through those states was beautiful country. My favorite part was definitely, I'm going to take Glacier National Park out. So my favorite part of Idaho, Montana was, hey buddy, was hiking up, ascending like 2,000 feet or 1,500 feet, getting on a plateau and just walking like 6 or 7 miles, maybe 4 to 6 miles across a big, wide open space, and then descending down into a valley, and then ascending back up, and then doing the exact same thing where you're walking 4 or 5 miles across this open space and you can see everywhere. I absolutely love that part of Montana. And that's the part where you get the photos. I'm pretty sure I mentioned in a previous video, that's what I was looking forward to. And so I can still remember many of those areas where we got up and we got to hike for a few miles at a high elevation on some plateaus, and I loved it. I absolutely love that. I probably will add to my list. Like, there's other trails I want to do. I want to do the Pacific Northwest Trail. I want to do the Grand Enchantment Trail down in Mexico. I want to do the Arizona Trail in Arizona. And hey, how are you doing, girl? There, I don't want to do the Appalachian Trail. I still don't have any desire. There's a couple of trails overseas that I would not mind. There's this one in New Zealand that goes across both islands that I haven't thought a lot about it, but it was lower on my list. So the CDT was the highest on my list a year ago. And these other ones that I'm mentioning are on my list. The New Zealand Trail was towards the bottom because I didn't know if I'd get over there. Plus I'm old, so we'll see how that goes. And then there was another trail, the Pokhara Loop over in Nepal. I'd love to go take that loop, and it's not like a through hike type of situation, but I think it would be beautiful. It would be beautiful to see the Himalayas. So there's some other trails, and I think at the bottom of that list, I'll probably add back hiking Idaho, Montana. It would be interesting to take a month or 45 days to go re-hike Idaho, Montana, not hiking the other sections, just going up to Idaho, Montana and hiking just re-hiking those sections again, just to see if I had this the same distaste just because the trail's carpeted with rocks, or if I had definitely a different view because I didn't have the fatigue. But that's gonna be down the list a bit. So I'm gonna end the video. Idaho, Montana, it definitely was not my favorite section, but looking back, I want to say that in one of the later videos that I have previously posted, I want to say that I put Idaho, Montana below New Mexico, Wyoming, and Colorado, at the bottom. If I was ranking a favorites list, and Colorado I think was at the top, and then I think I put Wyoming, and then New Mexico, and then Idaho, Montana. We'll get into this a little bit more in the next video when I'm talking about my overall feelings, but I would have to say that there's a special place in my heart for Colorado, but if I take Colorado out, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, New Mexico, they're all pretty even actually. Now that I've gone back and looked at the photos, or some of the photos, I've looked back at my notes, I've looked back at the statistics and mileage and whatever I was putting in and finishing every day, and every state has its positives, every state has its drawbacks, but if you look at just the positives of the states, I definitely put Idaho, Wyoming, Montana on the same level. New Mexico right now maybe just a tick below that because I did not get to hike through the 3 national forests, and I would like to go back and hike through the 3 national forests to actually see that beautiful section of northern New Mexico. But even the desert has its beauty in its own way. Man, I miss it. I miss the trail. One thing that people don't talk about, and again, I'll mention this in the video of the overall. Some people talk about, some people don't, but there's a depression that you go through when you finish a trail, especially a long distance trail. You've just spent 4 or 5 months doing this amazing thing, seeing amazing scenery, and you've accomplished this goal that you set out to do, and you were able to work through any kind of injuries that you had. You were able to work through logistics, and you get finished, and then you go back to a job, or for me, you kind of work, you kind of do a job search, you figure out what's next. But regardless if you have very specific thing you're going back to, or you're trying to figure out the next thing, there's a little bit of a depression that happens because day to day does not seem as beautiful as hiking up to the summit of a pass and seeing the sunrise, knowing that you got to run down so that you can cook your dinner and get to a level, like an elevation that's suitable for camping. But you take those 30 seconds to pause and look at the sunrise or sunset, or you look at the storm clouds, or you look at the scenery and the animals and the beauty of the water trickling through everything, or how the wind blows across a desert, or even the Great Basin in Wyoming. You don't get to see that kind of stuff every day, and I know that I had some nice scenery in the background just a few minutes ago before it got dark, but that's not the winds. It's not the Windmanooch. It's not Glacier National Park. It's not the thermal features in Yellowstone. I miss it. Like I said, it took 2 weeks and then the fatigue was gone and I missed it. So, okay, this is a little bit longer. I'll end here and I'll shoot those 2 other videos tomorrow and get them posted. And I hope everyone's doing well. Thanks for watching and have a wonderful evening.